The issue with the watermark is very serious.
Absolutely.
We teach our students that character counts.
And you should.
You don't teach it well enough.
Sometimes you have to wonder if TV executives are just guessing. They have a hit show, a golden goose, and then they make a decision so baffling it ends up breaking their own creation. Often, that decision involves casting. Whether it's adding a new face to freshen things up or letting a key player walk away, these choices can have disastrous consequences. These are 15 actors that ruined your favorite sitcom, one Jaleel White as Steve Urkel on Family Matters.
Hey everybody, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Neil? Thank God you're alive!
Remember the Winslows. Family Matters started in 1989 as a sweet, grounded family sitcom, a spin-off from Perfect Strangers. It was all about a Chicago cop named Carl Winslow, his wife Harriet, and their 3 kids. It was relatable, warm, and focused on everyday family life. Then, halfway through the first season, a nerdy neighbor named Steve Urkel showed up for a one-time guest spot. With his high-pitched voice, suspenders, and that classic line, "Did I do that?" Zrenia Jaleel White was an instant sensation. Here's where the trouble started. The audience went absolutely wild for Urkel. He wasn't supposed to be a main character, but the network saw a breakout star and pushed him to the forefront. Soon, Family Matters wasn't about the Winslow family anymore. It became The Steve Urkel Show. Every single plot began to revolve around him, his wacky inventions like the transformation chamber that turned him into the cool Stephen Urkel, and his relentless pursuit of Laura Winslow. The original charm of the family sitcom was totally lost. The show became a bizarre sci-fi comedy, and the other characters, even the parents who were the original focus, became side players in their own home. Truth be told, Jaleel White was a talented kid who did exactly what he was asked to do. But his character's overwhelming popularity fundamentally broke the show's foundation, turning a heartfelt family story into a live-action cartoon. It's a classic case of too much of a good thing. But as strange as it was for a show's main character to ruin it, things got even weirder on another 70s sitcom when the solution to slumping ratings was to add a brand new kid who would become the poster child for show-sinking desperation. 2. Robbie Rist as Cousin Oliver on The Brady Bunch.
No thanks, I'll get it.
No, I'm real good at ketchup. You gotta hit the bottom real hard, like this.
If you've ever heard the term Cousin Oliver syndrome, this is where it came from. The Brady Bunch was a wholesome titan of the early 70s. The premise was simple. A lovely lady with 3 very lovely girls meets a man named Brady with 3 boys of his own. For 5 seasons, we watched the Brady kids grow up. They dealt with school crushes, sibling rivalries, and that one time, Marcia got hit with a football. But by 1974, the original Brady kids were getting older. They weren't the cute little pipsqueaks they used to be. The youngest, Cindy and Bobby, were now preteens. The producers panicked. They believed the show's appeal was its cute kids. Their solution? Bring in a new cute kid. Enter Cousin Oliver, Carol Brady's 8-year-old nephew who comes to live with the family. Played by Robbie Rist, Oliver was a walking, talking plot device. He was there for one reason and one reason only: to be cute and get into adorable trouble. The problem was, fans saw right through it. It felt desperate and phony. Oliver's storylines were tacked on and felt completely separate from the family dynamic everyone loved. He was like a living, breathing admission from the network that the original formula was stale. Instead of saving the show, he signaled its end. His arrival was so jarring and so obviously a ratings ploy that The Brady Bunch was canceled just 6 episodes after he showed up. Poor Robbie Rist became the face of a show's last gasp, a warning to all future sitcoms. But while adding a new character can be a disaster, sometimes the biggest problem is when the main star's real-life actions force the network to make a decision that changes a show forever. 3. Roseanne Barr on Roseanne.
I want you to rinse off this plate in the sink.
Whatever.
The revival of Roseanne in 2018 was nothing short of a television miracle. It brought back the entire original Connor family, and it was a massive, out-of-the-gate hit. The show was praised for its honest portrayal of a working-class American family, tackling tough modern issues with the same blunt humor that made it a classic in the first place. Roseanne Barr was back at the center of it all, the loud-mouthed, wisecracking matriarch who felt more real than any other mom on TV. The show was the #1 comedy in America and was quickly renewed for a second season. Then it all imploded. In a moment of madness, Roseanne Barr posted some deeply offensive comments online. The backlash was immediate and overwhelming. ABC, the network behind the show, was faced with an impossible choice: cancel their biggest hit or stand by a star who had crossed a line. In a shocking and unprecedented move, they chose a third option. They fired Roseanne from her own show, but they didn't want to put the hundreds of other cast and crew members out of work. So they did something nobody saw coming. They continued the show without her, renaming it The Connors. The first episode of the new series dealt with the sudden off-screen passing of the Roseanne character. It was a bold, risky move that managed to save the jobs of many, but fundamentally altered the DNA of the show. The Connors has continued for several seasons, but for many original fans, a show about the Connors without its iconic and outspoken matriarch just isn't the same. It was a stunning fall from grace, a reminder of how an actor's off-screen behavior can have massive consequences. But as shocking as this was, another sitcom star had a public meltdown that was even more spectacular and drawn out, turning his #1 show into a media circus. 4. Charlie Sheen on 2.5 Men.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go throw up and take a nap.
For 8 seasons, 2.5 Men was an unstoppable ratings machine for CBS. It was built around one thing: the magnetic bad boy charisma of Charlie Sheen. He played Charlie Harper, a hard-partying, womanizing jingle writer living a life of luxury in Malibu. The show's comedy came from his freewheeling lifestyle, clashing with his uptight brother Alan and his goofy nephew Jake. Sheen was basically playing a heightened version of himself, and audiences loved it. He was one of the highest-paid actors on television, and the show seemed like it could run forever. But in 2011, Charlie's real-life antics spiraled out of control. His public feuds with the show's creator, Chuck Lorre, and his bizarre media interviews where he talked about tiger blood and winning became a national spectacle. He wasn't just playing a bad boy on TV anymore. He was living a public meltdown. The situation became so toxic and unpredictable that the network had no choice. They fired their #1 star from their #1 show. Production was shut down, and the future of the series was in serious doubt. This wasn't just a quiet departure, it was a messy public war of words that left a huge crater in primetime television. The show was too valuable to let go, so the producers scrambled to find a replacement, someone who could fill the massive void left by Sheen. Their choice would prove that replacing a sitcom's main character is one of the riskiest moves in Hollywood. 5. Ashton Kutcher on 2.5 Men.
I guess now is as good a time as any.
I ain't cleaning him up.
Can I use your phone?
Sure.
How do you replace an irreplaceable star? After the very public firing of Charlie Sheen, 2.5 Men was on life support. The producers decided to reboot the series, bringing in another big name, Ashton Kutcher, to co-star with the remaining cast. They started the new season by announcing that the character of Charlie Harper had met an untimely end in Paris. Then Kutcher's character, a goofy, broken-hearted internet billionaire named Walden Schmidt, shows up and ends up buying Charlie's beach house. The problem was instant and obvious. The entire comedic engine of the show was gone. The original premise was the tension between a fun-loving, irresponsible brother and a stuffy, responsible one. Walden Schmidt, however, was a nice, sweet, slightly dumb guy. The dynamic was completely different and, frankly, not nearly as funny. Ashton Kutcher is a charming performer, but he wasn't Charlie Sheen. The sharp, cynical edge of the show was replaced with broader, sillier humor. It felt like a totally different series that just happened to have the same title and two of the same actors. While the show managed to limp on for 4 more seasons with Kutcher at the helm, the ratings steadily declined. It never recaptured the magic or the cultural buzz of the Sheen years. For fans of the original, the Walden Schmidt era was a pale imitation, a constant reminder of the chaos that led to the change. It proved that sometimes even a famous actor can't save a show when its soul has been ripped out. But Kutcher isn't the only actor with a reputation for coming into a show late in its run. Another actor has become so famous for it, he's earned a legendary nickname. 6. Ted McGinley, the patron saint of jumping the shark. Some actors become stars, some become legends, and then there's Ted McGinley, who became a meme. For decades, there's been a running joke in pop culture that if Ted McGinley joins the cast of your show, it's a sure sign that the series is out of good ideas and is about to be canceled. He's been unfairly labeled the patron saint of jumping the shark. His reputation started with Happy Days. He joined the cast in Season 8 as Roger Phillips, a nephew of the Cunninghams, brought in after Ron Howard's character, Richie, left the show. While Happy Days did continue for a few more seasons, his arrival coincided with the show's creative decline from a beloved classic into a silly cartoon of itself. Then he did it again. He joined The Love Boat in its later years, just as it was running out of steam. But his most famous case was on Married with Children. He was brought in to play Jefferson Darcy, Marcy's second husband, after her first husband Steve left the show. To be fair, Married with Children was still popular for years with McGinley on board. The truth is, Ted McGinley is a perfectly fine actor. The curse is just a funny coincidence. He's a talented performer who often gets hired by shows that are already past their prime and are looking for new energy. He doesn't cause the decline. He just happens to show up when it's already started. Still, the legend is so strong that his name has become synonymous with a show's final desperate days. He is the ultimate symbol of a show trying to replace a key component of its cast, a problem that famously plagued another huge 80s sitcom when its leading lady decided to walk away at the height of its popularity. 7. Shelley Long, leaving Cheers.
I sincerely wanted more time with him, which I got. I wanted to go ahead and take advantage of the Disney contract, which I had to make movies.
For 5 seasons, Cheers was the pinnacle of television comedy. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural landmark. At the heart of it all was the fiery, will-they-won't-they romance between Sam Malone, the suave ex-baseball player and bar owner, and Diane Chambers, the snooty intellectual waitress. The brilliant, often imitated chemistry between Ted Danson and Shelley Long was the show's soul. Their witty banter, their arguments, their breakups, and their makeups were the stuff of TV legend. Then, at the height of the show's fame, Shelley Long decided to leave. She wanted to pursue a movie career and spend more time with her family. Her departure in 1987 was a seismic event in television. How could Cheers possibly survive without one of its 2 central pillars? Many critics and fans predicted the show was doomed. The entire romantic and comedic core was gone. The writers were faced with a monumental task: rebuild their show from the ground up. They brought in Kirstie Alley as the new character Rebecca Howe, a more neurotic and business-minded foil for Sam. Miraculously, it worked. Cheers managed to reinvent itself and continued to be a ratings juggernaut for another 6 seasons. However, a huge portion of the fan base never got over Diane's departure. For them, the show was, and always would be, about Sam and Diane. The Rebecca years were good, but they were different. They lacked the sharp intellectual spark that Long brought to the series. Her exit split the show's history in two and proved that even when a show survives, losing a key actor can leave a wound that never fully heals. And speaking of beloved characters leaving, one 90s sitcom suffered a double blow when 2 of its main stars decided to move on. 8. Topher Grace and Ashton Kutcher leaving that 70s show.
What are you doing eating?
Well, it's mainly for survival. But I also enjoy the fruity tastes.
That 70s show was a massive hit for Fox, a nostalgic and hilarious look at a group of teenage friends in suburban Wisconsin. The show's heart was the dynamic within that group, especially the relationship between the nerdy, good-natured Eric Foreman, played by Topher Grace, and his goofy, handsome best friend Michael Kelso, played by Ashton Kutcher. Eric was the show's anchor, the relatable center of the storm. It was his basement, his family, and his romance with Donna that formed the core of the series. After 7 successful seasons, both Topher Grace and Ashton Kutcher decided it was time to leave and focus on their burgeoning movie careers. This wasn't just losing one character, it was losing 2 of the most popular and central figures in the entire ensemble. The producers decided to press on for an 8th season, but the show was a shell of its former self. They introduced a new character named Randy, played by Josh Myers, who was meant to be a sort of composite of Eric and Kelso. He was handsome, witty, and even became a new love interest for Donna. Fans hated it. Randy felt like a cheap replacement, a soulless knockoff of the characters they had grown to love. The chemistry was gone. The jokes fell flat. The final season felt hollow and pointless without Eric and Kelso's presence. It was a painful lesson that a sitcom ensemble is a delicate ecosystem. When you remove 2 of its most important pieces, the whole thing collapses. The show limped to the finish line, a shadow of its former glory, proving that some characters are truly irreplaceable. But at least they tried to replace them, unlike one modern sitcom that simply erased a main character with no explanation at all. 9. Leah Remini on Kevin Can Wait.
No, I love you. God, I thought they were gonna make out.
Did you just call my mom a lesbian?
This might be one of the coldest and most bizarre casting changes in recent sitcom history. The show, Kevin Can Wait, starred comedian Kevin James as a newly retired cop. In its first season, his wife Donna was played by actress Erin Hayes. The show was a decent ratings performer for CBS, built on the classic family sitcom model. It was a reunion of sorts, as Kevin James's former King of Queens co-star, Leah Remini, guest-starred in the 2-part season 1 finale. The on-screen chemistry between James and Remini was still electric, so much so that the network executives saw an opportunity. For season 2, they made a drastic change. They fired Erin Hayes and promoted Leah Remini to a series regular, reuniting the beloved TV couple from King of Queens. But that left a huge question. What happened to Donna, Kevin's wife, and the mother of his children? Their solution was shockingly blunt. At the start of season 2, it was briefly mentioned that Donna had passed away a year earlier. There was no heartfelt goodbye, no emotional episode. The character was just gone, brushed aside to make way for the new old star. The move was met with widespread criticism from viewers and critics. It felt disrespectful to both the actress and the character. Fans were angry at how coldly the show disposed of its matriarch. The jarring retool didn't work. The ratings for season 2 dropped, and the show was canceled. It stands as a stunning example of a network trying to recapture old magic by making a ruthless decision that ultimately backfired, alienating the audience in the process. While this was a shocking character removal, some shows ruin a character not by removing them, but by slowly changing them into someone unrecognizable. 10. Ed Helms as Andy Bernard on The Office.
Just listen, I forgot to tell you the plan for this Saturday. You, me, bar, beers, buzzed.
No, I don't want to do any of that.
When Steve Carell left The Office, the show lost its comedic anchor, Michael Scott. For 7 seasons, he was the heart and soul of Dunder Mifflin. In the show's final 2 seasons, the writers elevated Andy Bernard, played by Ed Helms, to the position of regional manager. For a while, it worked. Andy was quirky, insecure, and eager to please. A different kind of boss, but one with potential. He had a sweet romance with Erin the receptionist, and fans were rooting for him. Then, in the 9th and final season, something went terribly wrong. The writers seemed to turn on Andy completely. He became selfish, neglectful, and cruel. He abandoned Erin for months to sail his family's boat to the Caribbean on a whim. When he returned, he was arrogant and obsessed with becoming famous, neglecting his job and his friends. He transformed from a lovable goofball into the show's biggest jerk. It was a bizarre and frustrating character arc that felt completely unearned and out of character. Many fans felt this sudden personality transplant ruined the final season. The storylines surrounding Andy's quest for fame were cringeworthy and sad, and they took up valuable screen time that could have been spent with the beloved supporting cast. Ed Helms did his best with the material he was given, but the writing for his character went so far off the rails that it soured the end of one of the most beloved sitcoms of its generation. It felt like a betrayal of a character viewers had grown to care about. This kind of character chaos wasn't new, as another popular sitcom had a messy situation with one of its young stars decades earlier. 11. Lisa Bonet on The Cosby Show and A Different World. In the 80s, The Cosby Show was the biggest thing on television, and Lisa Bonet, who played the free-spirited Denise Huxtable, was a style icon and a breakout star. She was so popular that in 1987, the network decided to create a spin-off for her called A Different World, which would follow Denise's journey at a historically black college. It was a huge vote of confidence in her star power. The situation got complicated quickly. During the first season of A Different World, Bonet and her then-husband announced they were expecting a baby. This real-life development didn't fit with the show's vision for the character of Denise as a young, single college student exploring her independence. Instead of incorporating the pregnancy into the show, the producers decided to write her out. After just 1 season of her own spin-off, Lisa Bonet was gone, and A Different World was retooled to focus on other characters like Dwayne Wayne and Whitley Gilbert, eventually becoming a huge hit in its own right. Bonet later returned to The Cosby Show, but her role was never quite the same. Her screen time was often reduced, and the behind-the-scenes friction was widely reported. Her departure from her own star vehicle and subsequent rocky return to the mothership created a messy and awkward chapter in the history of both shows. It was a classic example of real life clashing with a fictional narrative, leading to a situation that damaged a spin-off and altered the dynamic of the original hit. But sometimes an actor's personal life doesn't just change their role, it changes the entire message of the show they star in. 12th, Kirk Cameron on Growing Pains. Growing Pains was a staple of 80s family television. It centered on the Seaver family, with Alan Thicke as the psychiatrist dad who worked from home and Joanna Kearns as the working mom. The show's heartthrob and biggest star was Kirk Cameron, who played the charming, troublemaking oldest son, Mike Seaver. He was a teen idol, and his poster was on the wall of seemingly every teenage girl in America. As the show progressed, Kirk Cameron underwent a profound religious conversion in his personal life. This newfound faith began to heavily influence his work on the show. He started to object to storylines and jokes that he felt were too adult or inappropriate. According to reports from his castmates and producers, he began to request changes to the scripts, steering the show in a more conservative and moralistic direction. The most famous example was his objection to the casting of actress Julie McCullough as his character's girlfriend, allegedly due to her past posing for mature magazines. She was eventually fired. This shift created a palpable tension on set and changed the tone of the show. Growing Pains became less about relatable family hijinks and more of a vehicle for simple moral lessons. The edgy, wisecracking Mike Seaver of the early seasons was slowly replaced by a much tamer, more responsible version. While an actor's personal beliefs are their own, Cameron's influence over the show's creative direction was a rare and powerful example of a star fundamentally altering the content and tone of a top-rated sitcom, much to the frustration of some of his co-workers and the show's writers. Real-life drama affecting a show was also at the center of another family sitcom, but in a much more public and difficult way. 13. Mackenzie Phillips on One Day at a Time. One Day at a Time, which premiered in 1975, was a groundbreaking show for its time. It was about a divorced single mother, Anne Romano, raising her two teenage daughters, Julie and Barbara. It was produced by the legendary Norman Lear, and like his other shows, it wasn't afraid to tackle serious issues. The breakout star was Mackenzie Phillips, who played the rebellious and headstrong older daughter, Julie. She was the heart of many of the show's most dramatic storylines. Behind the scenes, however, Mackenzie Phillips was battling severe personal demons and substance abuse issues. Her increasingly erratic behavior became a major problem for the show's production. She would show up late, or sometimes not at all. Her performance was affected, and it became incredibly difficult for the cast and crew to work around the situation. The producers tried to be supportive, sending her to get help, but the problems persisted. Eventually, the situation became untenable. In 1980, the producers made the difficult decision to fire their troubled young star. Her character, Julie, was written out of the show. She would return for guest appearances later on, but her time as a series regular was over. It was a sad and public ordeal that cast a shadow over the series. It's a heartbreaking story where an actor didn't ruin a show out of malice or ego, but because their real-life struggles made it impossible for them to continue, leaving a noticeable hole in the heart of a beloved TV family. And while losing one family member is tough, another hit show made an even stranger choice. They made one of their kids simply vanish. 14. The disappearance of Judy Winslow on Family Matters.
I'm really getting sick of this. I want some of that meal and I want it now. Okay? Here, take this.
We already talked about how Steve Urkel took over Family Matters, but his rise to superstardom had another very strange consequence. In the first season, the Winslow family had 3 children, Eddie, Laura, and the youngest daughter, Judy, played by Jamie Foxworth. For the first 4 seasons of the show, Judy was a part of the family. She didn't have as many big storylines as her older siblings, but she was there, a normal part of the Winslow household. Then, at the beginning of season 5, she was gone, and she was never mentioned again. It wasn't that the actress was replaced. The character was completely and totally erased from existence. She went upstairs to her room one day, and in the show's reality, apparently never came back down. The family carried on as if they only ever had 2 children. It's one of the most infamous and bizarre examples of a show retconning its own history. The writers reportedly felt the character was getting lost in the shuffle as the Urkel storylines became more and more dominant, so they simply dropped her. For viewers, it was a confusing and slightly creepy development that has since become a famous piece of TV trivia. How could an entire family forget one of their own children? The removal of Judy Winslow is a stark example of how a show's shift in focus can lead to cold and calculated decisions that leave a permanent, strange mark on its legacy. It showed that sometimes it's not the presence of an actor that ruins a show, but their sudden, unexplained absence. And finally, let's look at a case where it wasn't a main character, but a recurring one whose changes messed with the show's perfect formula. 15. Ann B. Davis as Schultze on The Bob Cummings Show.
That's just anxiety about your new job. It's very normal.
Margaret, I think I'll call the missile factory and tell them I changed my mind.
This is a deep cut, but it's a fascinating look at how tampering with a perfect supporting character can backfire. The Bob Cummings Show, also known as Love That Bob, was a popular sitcom in the 1950s. It starred Bob Cummings as Bob Collins, a dashing Hollywood photographer who was a major ladies' man. But the show's secret weapon, and the actress who won 2 Emmy Awards for her role, was Ann B. Davis. You probably know her better as Alice, the beloved housekeeper from the Brady Bunch. Here, she played Charmaine Schultze, Bob's hilariously lovelorn and plain Jane assistant. Schultze's unrequited crush on her handsome boss was the source of the show's best comedy. Her wisecracks, her sarcastic asides, and her devotion to Bob made her the undeniable heart of the series. The audience adored her. She was the funny, relatable character who balanced out the glamorous lead. But after a few seasons, the network decided to make a change. They thought it would be a fun twist to give Schultze a boyfriend, a burly, folksy character from the hills named Tennessee. The move was a total misfire. Giving Schultze a love interest completely deflated the show's central comedic tension. Her pining for Bob was the whole point. Once she had a boyfriend, that dynamic was gone, and she became a much less interesting character. The show's chemistry was thrown off balance. It was a classic case of producers not understanding what made their own show work. They tinkered with the one ingredient that was already perfect, and in doing so, weakened the entire recipe, proving that even back in the golden age of television, meddling with a fan-favorite character was a recipe for disaster.